Alright guys, so I wanted to make a quick video, if I can, about replacing your gas tube, for lack of a better thing to call it, I guess, into your gas valve on your Cozy, or I guess Williams bought Cozy now, so your Cozy Williams furnace. From the last video, I think you guys know that I replaced my gas valve. Actually, the one that you're looking at now that's actually functioning on this heater actually is the old gas valve. This was the new one. It was on there for about 2 days, and I still had issues with the furnace. So I went ahead and, through the insanity of taking this thing apart about 30 times in the past 2 years that I've owned it just to get it to work properly, it just so happened to end up that the old gas valve is the one that ended on there, and this video is the reason why. When you're messing with these, you'll need pipe wrenches, or at least a pipe wrench, to really crank down on the piping that goes into your wall. But what you won't need to do is crank down with any amount of the same force when you are putting your gas tube or your pilot tube into your gas valve, which you can see the silver tube here that goes up and into the pilot. The reason why the old gas valve is on there is because I stripped, or maybe not stripped, but destroyed the threads. I cross-threaded pretty badly this brand new gas valve because I didn't know totally what I was doing. Most of this stuff is, at least what I've come to find, very tough. Pipe wrenches, really cranking down on it, sitting here on this floor with some high gripper gloves and really getting it tight. This part is the exact opposite. It's a very, very gentle thing that you don't want to over tighten. So firstly, when this piece comes in the mail, it's not going to look like this. You're going to need to bend this metal, the silver part, and these copper pieces are not actually going to be attached. What you'll do is you'll put the part that looks like a bolt on first. Sometimes they're actually together, so that may not be true. You'll just put this piece on. Sometimes they're separated, where there's a bolt and then there's a threaded part with this like flared out tip. You'll want to expose some of the metal tubing, as you can see right here. But what I really mean by that, and there's a good example right there, you'll want to expose some of that silver metal tubing beyond the compression fitting. I think they call it an NPT fitting or an NFT fitting. I can't remember which one it is, but if you write the company, they'll tell you. But NPT or NFT. But anyways, so when you go to put this in the gas valve, you'll have your copper fitting on the tubing, but what I would do is have it like up here. It's gonna slide. What you'll do is you'll take your silver tubing, your metal tubing, and you will push it into this hole. Once that silver tubing is stuffed into that hole, then you'll take your copper part, if I can do this with one hand, then you'll take your copper part and let it slide down the tube and into the threading. Once it's in the threading, you know that your silver part, because you stuffed it in first with your copper part way up here, right? You'll know that your silver part's in about as far as it can go, obviously, because it's going to find resistance, it's going to stop. Then that copper part, you slide that down, and that finds resistance just above the silver part, and you twist it the opposite way, so lefty-loosey, to get the copper part to hit or fit into the grooves of this gas valve. You're gonna slowly hand tighten it. If you're finding resistance, I would be very careful and probably not go too far if you're finding resistance. I would unscrew it, Go lefty-loosey again until you feel like or can see that the copper grooves or threads have clipped in to the silver grooves or threads. It's just like screwing anything. You don't want to cross thread it. You don't want to strip it. You don't want to screw it so much that that you mess it up. And this is very easy to mess up. A good tip, I'm sure a lot of you in the comments will disagree, but a good tip that really helped me get that one on and helped me secure it down with confidence is take a very, very little bit of pipe dope, and on the copper part, what you want to do is lightly coat the flared out tip, right? So this side will be easier to see. Lightly coat the flared out tip, and then lightly coat the threads, okay? That's gonna help thread that in, and it's gonna help create a seal. You shouldn't technically need to do that, but with how long it takes to get parts from Cozy during a pandemic, I just did not want to risk it. And it seemed like a reasonable thing to me. I know a lot of people say gas is dangerous. Gas can be dangerous. And there's different debates on where to use the yellow tape and where to use pipe dope and all of that. I wouldn't necessarily ignore these things, but you know, I've learned a lot in the past year and a half of having a faulty furnace that I really shouldn't say this, but to a degree there's rolls that can be bent. I wouldn't necessarily break any rolls, but I've learned from a lot of different forum posts that these rolls can be bent. So that's about it. Once you get that pipe dope on there, you're going to hand tighten this into the gas valve. You really should not feel resistance, especially with that pipe dope. If you do, start over, because you're gonna end up messing up your threads. And if my camera can focus, you'll end up messing up your threads like I did. So once that gets tightened in there by hand, take a small wrench that actually fits this bolt here and give it about 1.5 to 2 turns. Don't over tighten it. Once you get the whole thing together and it's looking like this again, what you'll do is you'll use a gas leak wand. Basically, this is sort of like a carbon monoxide detector, except this is a gas detector. You turn it on, it's gonna beep a lot, basically warming up. And then once this thing turns on and is ready, I got this for about $6 at Lowe's. Once this thing turns on, what you'll do is you'll make sure that that NFT or NPT fitting, whatever they call it, NFT, NPT, I can't remember, but you'll make sure that it's not leaking gas. Now, of course, you can use soapy water as well, but you know, just hold it there and make sure, because I had an incident about a month ago with these pieces here, where the furnace was working. It was on, it was working, everything seemed okay. My soapy water was not showing bubbles on this gas valve with this fitting in there. No pipe dope, by the way. But because I cross-threaded it, it wasn't a very good seal. Even though I couldn't smell gas, and even though the soapy water was not bubbling, this thing probably, to a degree, saved my family's life, because I turned on the heater, did not see any bubbles, so I thought that I fixed it. I left it running so my family would be warm as I ran down to Lowe's to buy this gas wand. I come home, the wife is cooking on an electric stove, by the way, and I turn this on just to see if it's working. I was standing about 4 or 5 feet from here, and it starts going off. And it only started going off at the smallest level, so just the next light up, but it started to creep in to the yellow, and I'm thinking, I don't smell gas. I sprayed bubbles again and see no bubbles anywhere. how is it that I don't smell gas and I sprayed bubbles and don't see any bubbling, but this thing is going off? And it was going off away from the heater, like way up here, way away from the heater. So I get down here and I start testing all the different areas. And lo and behold, when I get to my gas line, I realize there's a small leak in there because I didn't thread this correctly. In fact, I cranked down on it so much that I messed up the gas valve a little bit, and I don't even know if this brand new gas valve is savable. I don't know if I could redo the threads or what, but I just wanted to give you guys a video on this because this isn't as hard as it looks if you do it right. I don't see any other videos on how to do it right. At least, you know, if it's the wintertime and you're freezing, I highly recommend, for how cheap these parts are for the most part, that you have a back stock of them. Because if this goes out in the winter, you're going to want to be able to fix it, and you can use my videos to fix it so that your family can be warm. Like I said, take the silver tubing first, have the copper piece way up here, holding the copper piece, like where my thumb is. Stuff the silver tubing down into the gas valve, then release the copper piece. It's going to slide down into this hole. You'll have a little pipe dope on it, on the tip, as well as on the threaded part. So on the tip, as well as the threads. And you'll just slowly start to hand tighten. Oh, heater just kicked on. You'll just start to hand tighten that copper piece into the gas valve there. And as long as you don't feel resistance, which you should not, if you feel resistance, start over, hand tighten it down till it won't go anymore. Get yourself a wrench, do about 2 turns on it so it's really in the gas valve. Don't over tighten it. Use your gas wand once everything's hooked up to make sure that you tightened it enough. And if you didn't tighten it enough, this will go off. No big deal. Cut your thermostat off, so turn your thermostat to off. Cut your main gas valve so there's no gas coming into the house or anything. And really, you probably don't even have to do that, because all you're really going to do is take your wrench, get in there, and tighten that copper nut up just a little bit more. Just so that gas leak stops. You could probably do that with it running, although I don't recommend it. But I mean, all you're doing is putting a wrench to that nut right there, or bolt, and tightening it down. So hope that helps you guys. That's my experience. I understand that there's probably some HVAC people out there that are gonna rip me apart in the comments for this, but when your family's freezing and you offer HVAC people double to work on this, and 2 of them tell you, I won't touch a Cozy or Williams wall furnace because they have ghosts in them, and I'm going to be charging you to do exactly what you just did. So save yourself a small fortune and do it yourself. You become astounded at one point, and then you realize you're just going to have to tackle it yourself. For the most part, as long as you cut the main gas line to your house, which for me is right there on the other side of that wall, and you're not doing something stupid like smoking a cigarette or having a ton of lit candles around you, and you have ventilation from windows or fans, you should be just fine. Just take it slow and do it right. Hopefully these videos help you. Stay tuned for the next one.